My presentation is on the Sierra Leone Collateral Registry and lessons learned. I'm made to aware that, well, there are countries on this seminar who are about setting up the Collateral Registry. So my presentation will also stem to explain to them the challenges along the way, the do's and don'ts. I'm Yusuf Dalhatu. I'm the acting registrar of the Sierra Leone Collateral Registry Unit, which is domiciled at the Banking Supervision Department, Bank of Sierra Leone. Technology is failing us. Flick to the next. We surely defeat technology. Okay, in 2004-2005, there was a survey conducted by a global survey on Sierra Leone on the top constraints in doing business in Sierra Leone. So among the most problematic factors for doing business, we had access to finance, corruption, inadequate supply of infrastructure. Access to finance top among the list that was surveyed, meaning there was problem with access to finance, especially to the MSME segment. So that was what the survey indicated. So in 2014, 2015, the survey that was conducted pinpointed that access to finance is a challenge, and to a particular segment, SMEs. And that survey was also buttressed. We had another survey by the then President Delivery Team, which also indicated that 85% of small and medium enterprises that were asked what was their biggest challenge in operation, they noted that access to finance. They were unable to access finance. Because at that time, most financial institutions, when you go to them to access loan, the first they will ask for you is what is your collateral. For students of banking and finance, we have what we call 5 C's of credit, which is capacity, cash, your character, the condition of the business, and then the collateral. The collateral should not be the first. It should not be the mainstay. Your capacity to repay, your cash flow, these are the first they should consider. But over the years, because financial institutions aren't your bond, the loan default rate is so high, when you go to them, the first thing they will ask, what's your collateral? And in case of banks, most of them, they will ask for immovable assets rather than movable assets. So meaning microfinance, small and medium enterprises were left out, because most of them, the collateral they do have is movable assets. So they find it at that time to have access to credit or access to loans. Next. So prior to the establishment of the collateral registry, financial institutions were a bit reluctant to accept movable assets as collateral to obtain bank financing. You will see in the next slide why. MSMEs were definitely left out because of what I did say earlier on. They don't have immovable assets, which are immovable assets, any other thing, are land or real estate. Movable assets are any other thing other than land or real estate. Your motor vehicle, your machinery, your equipment. Hence, MSMEs were left out as most of the assets comprises movable assets. So while we are banks reluctant or financial institutions reluctant to lend to SMEs, one, there was no legal and regulatory framework. There was no collateral registry, no system in place where a financial institution can go in and check to see whether that property has not been encumbered by another financial institution. High NPL rate was also another factor, high default rate. As human beings, sometimes we also find it difficult to move to the unknown. Lack of interest in moving to the unknown. Financial institutions were comfortable with their modus operandi, so they don't want to move to the unknown. So in 2014, the Bank of Sierra Leone, in collaboration with the World Bank Group, with other stakeholders, we enacted the Borrowers and Lenders Act to address some of these challenges. The Act, among others, augment existing laws governing credit delivery, as well as to seek and promote secure transaction. So Section 15(1) of the Borrowers and Lenders Act empowers the Central Bank, which I work for, to establish and maintain a collateral registry. In 2016, we also enacted the Borrowers and Lenders Regulation. The regulation explained in details how the collateral registry should work. So the features of our collateral registry: it's a web-based application hosted at the Bank of Sierra Leone data center and can be accessed 24/7. So you can even sit in the comfort of my village or my home and access the collateral registry. All you need is an internet connection and your laptop. It's similar to how property registry operates in other parts of the world. Another feature is backup is done on an hourly basis in a remote location known as a disaster recovery site. It's for institutions, banks, and other institutions. That's one of central banks. Central bank normally asks financial institutions to have a data recovery site. In case there is a problem, you have a fallback. The system is running on a Microsoft SQL server. So having operated for some time, we realized there were gaps in our law, the Borrowers and Lenders Act, with respect to secure transaction. In our 2014 Act, individuals were unable to register security on the collateral registry. Institutions not licensed by the Bank of Sierra Leone. As regulator, our first call is to protect our financial institution. But institutions not licensed by the Bank of Sierra Leone were unable to register property on the collateral registry. So if you take a look at the doing business report, these are all what we call not the best practice, because individuals should be able to register property. For example, if Yusuf, I lend a property to Leone. Leone should be at liberty to register that property. But our law at that time forbid her not to register because she is not an institution. But a crafty Yusuf, I will take that property and go to a bank, Lloyd Bank, and ask for a loan. The bank will check the collateral registry and search. So the bank will not see that property. The bank will go ahead and give me a loan. But at the same time, the bank will not see the blind side that Leone also have an interest on that property. And by law, if there is default, Lloyd Bank has the power to take that property from Leone. So meaning the individual was not covered. So institution not licensed by Bank of Sierra Leone was also not covered. So these were the downsides of our law. But we were able to envisage that based on operation. So we had to repeal and replace the Borrowers and Lenders Act 2014 based on the gaps identified. Next. So the purpose of the new act, which was passed last year in 2019, is to broaden the scope. Okay. Is to broaden the scope of the registry to include the registration of immovable assets. In addition to the movable asset, which is a one-stop shop, as well as allowed individuals who are not licensed by the Bank of Sierra Leone to be able to register property. Next. I'm not saying down. So lesson learned. For those who will be starting collateral registry, you should have a dedicated project team. And the project team should understand the concept of secure transaction from the onset, including international best practice, so that the software vendors, those who will be programming the registry, should know what is expected of them. Otherwise, you will go back and forth. It will take time. So the project team should understand the concept. That is one of the lessons learned, especially for those who want to start collateral registry. Two, there should be a dedicated team, operational and technical team, charged with the operation of the process. Selecting of the software vendor is also crucial to the overall success of the project. I know of a country that choose a vendor outside our region or outside of Africa well, that has not been operating, that have not done collateral registry in our region. They did the registry, but when there is problem, it takes time for them to come back to fix it. So it's also a problem. Effective sensitization. For collateral registry, awareness raising and sensitization is key. You need to explain to the lawyers, the judges, the magistrate, the public. They need to be aware of what the collateral registry is all about. Otherwise, they will keep on going to you, the collateral registry, to register property and not financial institution or individual. So awareness raising and sensitization is key. Another lessons learned is continuous training. Even when the registry is established, you should continue to train stakeholders to use the registry. Because for financial institutions, especially banks, sometimes the turnover of staff is so high. So you should keep training them. And you should also encourage staff that you have trained to replicate the training to other staff. Another lesson learned is mandatory use of the registry for credit assessment process. We have a problem wherein after the establishment of the registry, financial institutions were at liberty to register property or not. In our own area, in this part of the world, if you don't force people, if you don't sanction them, they will not. So you should be able to check for when they are doing their credit and risk assessment process. So it should be mandatory. Otherwise, it will be a white elephant project sitting and they will not use it. So this is the website of the Sierra Leone Collateral Registry. We are on www.slcr.gov.sl. Thank you very much.